What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we are 2 days through mandatory minicamp. There is plenty to talk about, including some guys that are shining, some guys that are not there, and maybe some moves that are right on the verge of happening because, well, it's wide receiver breaking point season, and there's plenty to dive into. We have three big topics we're going to dive into today. A great show. Very excited about today's show. And then, as always, we will answer everybody's questions. Make sure to go subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts, and continue to find all our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. It is a beautiful day here in the Berg. I won't lie to you. Day 3 of minicamp, I'm supposed to be there. I told Steven when we left the facility yesterday, I said, dude, I'm not going to lie. 50-50 shot I show up to practice tomorrow. Not because I don't want to. Nothing I want to do more than watch football. Nothing my future wife wants me to do more than help her finish everything we need to do for the wedding. So sometimes you gotta take an L there when you have to. I'm feeling great. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm feeling okay. I mean, feeling great because it's the summertime and all the other stuff that we talked about on Tuesday, but also we're staring into the abyss of a very long stretch of no football. So with that in mind, I'm excited to talk about some of these storylines from this week, because next week and going forward, it's going to be a lot of, I would say nonsense, but it's going to be a lot of searching for some things. So I'm okay, but also aware that we're about to go 6 weeks without any football actual news.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right on the deadline. And I was talking, there are a lot of people who just take the summer off. It's like if you work in sports journalism and cover the NFL, it's like being a kid in high school. Like you get summer vacation. We don't get that. And we don't want that. You know, there's no part of me that's like, man, I want to go an entire summer not talking about football. So we continue to talk. Those people, they take a little bit of break. I feel this year like I get a little bit of a break. It's weird. It's I'm leaving for 10 days and all I'm thinking is, that's it. That's summer vacation. This is not supposed to happen. But here we are. I'm excited. And then I come back and it's July and it's dead season. So we'll have shows. We'll figure it out. We always do figure it out. There's plenty to happen. And like I said, we'll have a trade recap going on as I come back, because that's going to happen while I'm overseas. There's no questions about it. I'm feeling good. I want to answer Bert's question here. How the vows coming? Started writing them this morning. I won't lie to you. 6 a.m. I woke up. I said, all right, today's the day. We're getting them done. I'm about a quarter of the way through. We're getting there. It's tough. You know what I mean? I don't know about you. I don't know about everybody watching the show, but I'm not like a real emotional guy. So, you get like you hit your points. You're like, all right, that was enough emotion. We're good. We're going to shut it down. We'll try it again tomorrow, and then we'll move on. But we're getting there. I'm feeling real confident about it. And, we got 2 days. 48 hours is a long time to write a speech. My dad actually, he said for 2 days, and then we'll talk wedding and then we'll move on to the Steelers. I apologize for this, but my dad has said for a year and a half that he is super excited to give a speech at my wedding, that he wants to give a speech at my wedding. Awesome. Last night he shows up in Pittsburgh. We're out to dinner and I'm like, yo, I'm excited for your speech. This is when you give it. And he's like, I'm not giving a speech. I was like, yeah, you are, dude. You've been saying for 2 years you're giving a speech. He's like, nah, I never said that. One time. He's like, I'm not giving a speech. I was like, all right, well, either you got 24 hours to write a speech or, we'll just move on and that'll be fine. So we'll see what happens. He said he'll let me know on Saturday. I said, all right, sounds great. Sounds good. So it'll be a fun weekend. Appreciate everybody with the congratulations. Let's dive into some actual Pittsburgh Steelers football here. There's one negative headline, one very positive headline that I want to talk about. We'll obviously start with the bad before the good, just to get that out of the way. Najee Harris continues to miss minicamp for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yesterday, we kind of talked about it as a no big deal, but as it happens 2 days in a row, you got to continue to address it because it is probably the biggest news coming out of minicamp as of right now. Mike Tomlin addressed it after practice. He said, quote, not anything that's going on to be an issue whatsoever regarding health. You guys know my approach. Cam Hayward didn't take any snaps today either. That's another example of it. I know a lot about some of these guys. I know less about some of these other guys. So I like to focus my energy on those that are working and not those that I'm moving out of the way at times to see others. Harris was at practice. Najee was present, but he was just in sweats. He was not on the field. He was not participating. He didn't participate at the end of OTAs. He missed the first 2 days of minicamp. I think at this point, I'm not concerned yet. I'm a little skeptical about what's going on. I would like to have a better understanding of where he is health-wise, or if this is a contract situation, because I think there's good and bad to both sides. If it's an injury thing, okay, keep him sidelined. There's no need to push this guy in minicamp. There's no need for him to be on the field if he's not 100% healthy. There's just no point to that. If this is contract situation, I want to know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are considering a long-term deal for Najee Harris. And I think everybody else wants to know if the Pittsburgh Steelers are considering a long-term deal for Najee Harris. So if this is a hold-in, make it a hold-in. Let it be known that contract situations are happening, and that's what's going on. Because if you don't make that happen, I think that the other side of this is people are going to start worrying about if Najee Harris is healthy, and then it's going to come smack him in the face, and they might not be prepared for it. And I think that's where I stand, is I'm more skeptical about the situation than I am worried. I'm not worried. It's way too early to be worried about anybody not at practice. But I don't know what's going on, and I think it's one of two sides. Either he's dealing with something, or the Pittsburgh Steelers and him are potentially having some contract talks. What are your thoughts?
The question that I have, if it's the latter of the two there, is why is Mike Tomlin shielding Najee Harris? If that is the case,
Yes.
Again, we don't know if that's the case, but if that is the case and it's a contract dispute, why is Mike Tomlin going above and beyond to basically say, well, yeah, there's nothing wrong here. Everything's fine as a daisy. Like, I understand that Mike Tomlin's one of the perks of having Mike Tomlin as your head coach is he mitigates drama, or at least that's what he's supposed to do. But I don't see somebody in the organization going as far as to basically blatantly, I wouldn't say lie, but shield a player whenever he's holding out or holding in or something like that. Again, the injury thing, again, I feel like that's something that would have been brought up. I feel like that would have been an easy, all right, if you say that, it's the end of the questions. And we all know Mike Tomlin loves to find the end of the questions. But, again, like you mentioned, at this moment, it's curious, but it's not concerning, especially because even if it does persist through the rest of this camp, it's mini camp. You got a month and a half here to figure out whatever the situation is with Najee, and then you really get to see what the issue is come training camp, because that's when he's supposed to be on the field. So I'm not concerned about it. Like you said, I'm a little intrigued by the situation, but again, I feel like it can't be a contract, because why would Tomlin be going out of his way to shield Najee if that is the case?
Well, we all know Mike Tomlin loves to just, toss the media a little something, as he says, toss us a little something. I will say, when it comes to the injury front, he doesn't talk injuries this time of year. He kind of hides that. I remember a couple of years ago, Terrell Edmonds went through a shoulder surgery. I was just trying to get it confirmed by the team, so I asked Mike Tomlin about it. He kind of gave me a brush it off answer. I asked a second time, and he got real fired up at me. He gave me the answer. He confirmed that he had surgery, and then as he was walking away, he goes, "Who's that?" He said a word. Who's that? You guys could interpret it from there. I don't know what it is, because I kind of feel the same way. If it's an injury, just shut it down. Just say, "Oh yeah, he's dealing with a little knee thing. He'll be back. It's no big deal. It's nothing big." If it's a contract thing, cool, toss it out there. I think that helps. I think that benefits the situation. There's no need to say anything. And all the other coaches haven't said anything. And I think that's where it becomes even larger of a conversation, is Eddie Faulkner doesn't say anything. And usually the position coaches kind of give you a little bit of something. They're like, I wouldn't be on the field either if I was negotiating a contract. Back in the Keith Butler days, man, he'd give you everything. Randy Fichtner give you everything. Some of these guys typically toss something out there. Nobody's tossed anything out there. So you just have to wonder what's going on. And then at the same time, is there the side of it that this is Najee Harris and he's choosing not to be out there because for some reason or another, he just doesn't want to be on the practice field? I don't know. It's too early. This is a pretty significant day in my eyes, is he's got to be on the field on day 3 to some capacity, because if he's not, we're starting to get into the territory of last year during training camp when Najee's not on the field ever. He's barely taking snaps and nobody's addressing the situation, and everybody's starting to kind of freak out about it. What is Najee hurt? Is there an issue? Is this Jaylen Warren's thing? What are you doing with Najee Harris? Why are you holding him back so much? And then you kind of have a slow start to the season. I think that there's reason to kind of give some insight of what's going on. Again, all that kind of goes away if he's on the field today. We'll see if he's on the field today, but at the same time, might bring up some more questions about whether this is health or what's going on, because why did he miss the first 2 days of camp and then he's back? We'll see. A lot of questions to be answered, but definitely a major headline to keep your eyes on if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. The second thing I want to talk about here, this is the good one. This is the positive. I'm very excited to talk about this. There has been a name, and we've talked about a bunch of them. Darius Rush, Corey Trice a little bit, Calvin Austin, George Pickens, Van Jefferson's been impressive, Scotty Miller's been impressive, Deshaun Elliott, looks like he's got muscles on muscles on muscles. Minka's looking like Minka Ball, so on and so forth. We've tossed everybody out there. There is one name we've talked about a little bit. We need to start talking about way more, because this dude is, in my opinion, hands down the most impressive person at minicamp. The most impressive person that's been on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last 3.5 weeks, pushing 4 weeks. That is Nick Herbig. As outside linebacker, Nick Herbig, second-year guy. And I talked to Terrell Austin yesterday, asked him where he sees Nick Herbig and if he could see signs of that second-year leap. Everybody says that in Pittsburgh, it's about going from year 1 to year 2. That's when you'll see the most growth, and you see that a lot of times. I asked Austin if he could see the signs of that, because it's still shorts and helmets. You got to see more of it. But if he could see the beginning of this was his answer. I thought it was very interesting. Quote, "It's not so much in the rush and how he's rushing, but I think it's in his approach to the game and what he knows. It's always a little different. You get used to NFL football in your first year. Your second, you get a jump because you kind of understand the game, and that's what I see with him. He understands what's going on around him. It's not just, hey, what's my position? He can understand, and he has a good feel for the game." He continued to say, "I'm very excited about Nick, and I think when you look at what he did last year and the limited amount of reps he played, his impact was pretty good. If he was playing more reps this year, it wouldn't surprise me. And I wouldn't be like, oh, we got to get the other guys back in. I would be trustful of what he's going to do when he's in the game." He started that question by just strictly saying, my question was, do you see that second-year leap? Do you see the signs? His was yes, period. I feel very good about Nick Herbig. That dude's been ridiculous. I said it to you before the show. Either Troy Fautanu's really bad or Nick Herbig is really good, because it has been a lopsided battle, and there have been moments. If you are at practice, if you are at Pittsburgh Steelers practice, and you can see it in games. You see it in games all the time. TJ Watt does this thing where if you piss TJ Watt off, and TJ Watt does not believe he should have been pissed off in that moment. Like, a good example is yesterday during practice, and again, probably not supposed to say this, but I'm going to say this anyways because I love you guys. Flag gets thrown on TJ. TJ does not think that a flag should have been thrown on TJ. He's not happy about it whatsoever. So the next play, instead of just going through the play, allowing the offense to do your thing, playing good football, no. He decides Broderick Jones is going 30 yards into the backfield, whether Broderick wants to do it or not. TJ throws this man. It was ridiculous. Nick Herbig starts doing stuff like that. It's Nick Herbig. You see those moments where it's like, ooh, that was wild. Like, Nick should not have been able to maneuver another grown man that is 100 pounds more than him the way that he is maneuvering these men. He should not be in the backfield making Justin Fields run for his life on every single play. But that's what's happening. Nick Herbig looks like an absolute monster out there. I expect a massive jump from year 1 to year 2. We got to put pads on. But I don't know. It's just it's the fluidity. It's not the, oh, that was a good play by Nick. It's every single play this dude is winning. And you could ask Justin Fields. He's not having a good time there. He's running around like a lunatic because Nick Herbig is chasing him all over the place. I know you have not been there, but to hear about Nick Herbig and that growth, how, I don't want to use the word exciting, but how high does that bring the Steelers' potential to have a third outside linebacker that might be a stud and is only 22 years old behind TJ and Alex?
I mean, it increases their potential exponentially. It does, because you talk about last year and how well off they were with a rookie Nick Herbig and a veteran Marcus Golden. If you
Yes.
have Nick Herbig getting some more of that maturity, you have him basically covering two spots. And the big thing for that is, I mean, you even saw it last year. I don't have to be there at minicamp. I can, one, I trust your eye on football. And
Yeah.
two, you started to see it towards the end of last season where he started to just get it. And if that
Yes.
continues to grow, and like you mentioned, it's early. We don't want to make sweeping overreactions based on minicamp and football in shorts. But
Yeah.
if he can continue to do that, that is a massive, massive positive for the Steelers, because it's not going to be this year. It might not even be next year. But if he can supplant Alex Highsmith, everybody talks and complains about the Steelers having the most expensive defense in the league. If he's able to elevate his game, and again, this is an if, but if he's able to elevate his game to that level and become the number 2 next to TJ Watt, that opens up the opportunity to maybe perhaps move on from Highsmith down the road, open up some salary cap space, and be able to add to the team as a whole. So again, his emergence as a true stud outside linebacker is nothing but a positive for the Steelers, and you saw
Yes.
it begin last season.
Yes, I agree. 100% is all you're looking for is positives. And again, just like you said, if you could be a guy that pushes the other, TJ Watt's not going anywhere. You know, TJ Watt's not, the city would riot, but definitely should riot if TJ Watt ever left the Pittsburgh Steelers before he was ready to leave the Pittsburgh Steelers, or it looked like he wasn't a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore, or shouldn't be here. If you could surpass Alex Highsmith in the next couple of years, the Steelers are in massively good territory, because you just developed another star outside linebacker. And it kind of feels TJ is a great outside linebacker, and you knew that coming into the NFL. Like, TJ was a guy that I couldn't believe he fell to them. I was very excited that he did. You look at the long history of Steelers outside linebackers and the greats, and a lot of these guys are the middle of the pack, end of the road outside linebackers who got a chip on their shoulder, and the Steelers bring in here to develop into absolute monsters because they just fit what they could do when they grow that game. A lot of guys look at guys and say, "Oh, he's already really good." The Steelers look at it and say, he has the tangibles to make him really good. He has the physical traits, this or that makes him really good over development. Nick Herbig looks like that guy. When he came in here, he looked like that guy. Really fast, explosive off the line, has a good jump, as athletic as they come, and is powerful. Much more powerful than his size says he should be. That's what the Steelers have worked on for a full year, is just perfecting all of those things. You're starting to see it, and this is only year 2. The guy's 22 years old. That's wild. He's got 8 years before he's TJ Watt's age. That's 2 NFL contracts. That's a long time. That's a long time to develop, and I think he is he's going to do some massive things for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He is my name to watch heading into training camp, because I think he's been the winner of minicamp. I always put out my guys that impress after minicamp, and I plan to do the same thing tomorrow or Saturday morning. I haven't decided when it'll go live yet. He will headline that list. He will be the top guy that you just undeniably is going to be a stud, and you just have a hard time. He's George Pickens, he's Jaylen Warren, he's those guys from years past. He looks that 3. And Calvin Austin, Big Mabe, Calvin Austin will be on that list as well, no doubt about it. All right, next thing I want to talk about. I know we're tired of talking wide receivers. I'm tired of talking wide receivers. We'll keep it very short, and then we'll dive into everybody's questions as usual. There are 2 names, a couple of names. Brandon Ayuk's probably on there, but there are 2 other names that seemingly are hitting breaking points with their team, that the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could start to see some momentum building, where it's like, end of the road is coming for these guys and their current organizations. Looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers might have some opportunities to jump on some things with some new organizations. That is Courtland Sutton and T. Higgins. And T. Higgins isn't coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he's a good example, because this is where we are. It's not about, the Pittsburgh Steelers could go get Courtland Sutton or T. Higgins or Jamar Chase or Brandon Ayuk or any of those. It's updating the timeline. The timeline currently is, we are at the point where contracts are not going to get done and guys are not showing up to minicamp. The next 2 weeks are pivotal. The next 2 weeks are, if guys don't get deals done, deals get made, because then there's no wiggle room. The NFL and those organizations take the beginning of July off. All of them. It's a ghost town. I'm telling you, everybody takes their vacation July 1st until July 10th. It happens every single year. At that point, that is when it becomes nothing's done. Doesn't look like anything's going to get done before training camp. We're ready to move on. And you could see the good and you could see the bad. You could see the Jamar Chase believes he's going to get a deal done. He's doing things. T. Higgins doesn't. He's not there. Cortland Sutton is very open that he's upset with the Broncos and that things are not going very well. That's a name to watch. Brandon Ayuk is nowhere to be found. Name to watch. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings have deals done. They're there in place. It's all over the place. This is the time of year where you're looking at wide receivers and saying, this is make or break season. You got 2 weeks. That's why I'm telling you it's going to happen while I'm gone. It's coming close. Do you agree? Do you disagree that we're kind of hitting that point? And again, I don't want to take up too much time talking about wide receivers. We continue to talk about wide receivers. There's other things to talk about, but do you agree that it's that timeline, that it's the time of the year where things are starting to get into motion because they're just not going well and you're running out of time to get a deal done?
Yeah, mandatory minicamp is the first chance that any of these players have to make that statement of, hey, it is mandatory and I'm not here. So that's when you really start to turn up the heat, at least a little bit. But the closer and closer, as you mentioned, you get to training camp, the next 2 weeks are, all right, now we know you're mad. Now we know you're willing to be fined for being upset about this situation. Now it's, what can we do to resolve this? It turns up the timeline. It speeds everything up. And so I agree. This is when you start to see that a little bit. Now, again, some of these players, maybe all of these players, end up figuring something out in the next couple of weeks. It's not guaranteed that any of them get moved, but at the same time, this is the time whenever, the conversations get a little bit more serious, because at this point of the offseason, most of the other moves are done, and that is your sole focus as an organization is, what are the last couple things we need to do? Oh, our star receiver's not happy and skipped out on mandatory minicamp or decided not to be heavily involved at mandatory minicamp. That can be our sole focus moving forward. And that's why timelines get expedited a little bit going forward.
Exactly. That is where we're at, where GMs and agents are talking and they have deadlines, and everybody has deadlines. Nobody wants to miss training camp. These guys don't want to continue to lose money. So they're going to start pushing. And that's where we are. It starts with, we want to get a deal done. Deals got to get done. Deals got to get done. I'll show up. I'll do some work. I'm not losing money. That's the Cortland Sutton side of things, is he's there. He's showing up. He's doing stuff because he doesn't want to lose money. He has some understanding that a deal could get done. There's the other side of those with the Brandon Ayuks and the T. Higgins, where it's like, I don't think that a deal is going to get done, but I'm only going to lose so much money before I start changing my negotiation tactics. Guys aren't looking to sit out a whole year. That's not ever a good idea. And I think players are starting to realize that that's not a good idea. I think they have more power than ever when it comes to forcing trades, and names like that typically get traded before they just sit out, and then guys just let them move on with their lives. I see that as we're hitting that crossroads of negotiations are starting to go from let's get a deal done, let's get a deal done, let's get a deal done, to you clearly don't want to get a deal done with me. You clearly don't want to reach my side of the negotiation table. Let's get a trade done. Let's find a trade partner. You're going to start seeing those things over the next 2 weeks. Is guys are going to delete stuff off social media. They're going to make comments. There's going to be the reports of this guy has the ability to go seek a trade. All that is coming, and it's coming soon. It's just an update on the timeline. Alex is here. Who are we talking about? We're not talking about specific names. It's more so just updating the wide receiver market. Is Brandon Ayuk, Cortland Sutton, T. Higgins, they're all kind of making it known that they're hitting the end of the road here. So expect something to happen, and expect something to happen in the next couple of weeks, which great for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I still think a move's happening. I don't expect them not to make a move. You got too much cap space not to make a move, and you're going to have more once you extend Cam Hayward. I expect the move to be done, and I expect it to be done before training camp. So we're getting close. We're definitely getting close. With that said, we'll stop talking wide receivers. I know we continue to talk wide receivers. Let's answer some questions. We got a couple of them. If you have more, toss them in the chat. Love to answer all of them before we head out of here. So toss them out there.
Let's start with Noah Thomas today. He says, why are things like OTAs and minicamps even mandatory for veterans that are assured of being on the 53-man roster, especially since the league is pushing for extra games and 3 games in 11 to 14 days?
Yeah, so it's mandatory just simply to kind of get guys there and make sure that they're in shape, make sure that they're healthy. You got guys like Najee, you got guys like Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, just to make sure that they're good to go, to start to understand changes, start to work and get some chemistry with other guys. I mean, you could look at Patrick Queen and Russell Wilson and Justin Fields as prime examples. All of them are going to make the 53-man roster. There's zero questions asked. Joey Porter Jr., another one. George Pickens, another one. All going to make the 53-man roster. But this is crucial because you want to start developing relationships with other players on the field and learning the defense, understanding what's going on. There's much more than just practice that goes on at mandatory minicamps. You're going into meetings all day long. You're there morning to dusk. This is a typical practice day. You're starting to kind of understand everything, go through the meetings, learn some stuff, go through all the mandates. This is when the NFLPA takes care of all their nonsense where they're going to hold the you can't gamble stuff and all that stuff. You go through all of that this time of year. It's more so to just kind of get yourself adjusted, get back into football life, get back into your routine, because these guys are very routine oriented. That's what it is. It's not so much the practice of things. It's more so just adjusting to football life once again after taking a little bit of a break.
That, and I would also imagine like dealing with newer players too, rookies
Yes.
especially, just getting
Yeah,
at
rookies
least that
definitely.
first vibe. You don't want to show up at Latrobe and be like, "Well, nice to meet you. We got 6 weeks to become
Yeah.
best friends and great with chemistry on the field."
Yeah, exactly. You're looking to build that camaraderie. Like, this is minicamp is the beginning of, I know everybody, so that when we get to Latrobe, heads down, let's build it. Let's build a team. Let's get this together.
Joe has a question here about the linebackers. Says, "What's up, guys? Just wondering how many linebackers are going to get the green dot this year, and if Cole Holcomb doesn't return, do you think they'll bring back another familiar face to replace him?"
If Cole Holcomb doesn't return, I'll start with that side of the question. I do believe that they bring back a guy like Quan Alexander. Or they go out and get somebody and they try to make that work, even if it's later in the offseason or later in the summer, where they bring somebody in that they don't necessarily think is a starter, but could be here as a good backup, a quality depth piece, even if it's behind Mark Robinson, because hopefully Mark Robinson continues to take steps forward. I do believe that, but I hope Cole's back. I think Cole's been working hard. He's been there every single day. Mike Tomlin's got positive updates every time we talk about him. I have high hopes that Cole Holcomb is making strides towards a return. I don't know when that'll be, but strides towards a return. As for the green dot, Patrick Queen's going to wear the green dot every time he's on the field. Landon Roberts will probably wear the green dot as well when he's on the field, but those will be your guys. Cole Holcomb too when he's back. All three of those guys will wear the green dot, but Patrick Queen's going to be your guy. He's going to be your 3-down linebacker out there all the time. I would expect him to almost always have the green dot. And then if there are times where he needs rest or whatever, the other two, Landon Roberts, Cole Holcomb, they could both handle the situation. But it's been made pretty clear Patrick Queen's that guy.
Adam has a question about the linebackers as well. Leaping off of what we talked about with Nick Herbig, says, "Do you think Nick Herbig can be a 3-down linebacker?" I think that's always been the concern with him.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have any worries that he won't be a 3-down linebacker. I think he's young. I think having to not be a 3-down linebacker right now is helpful, but I don't see any issues if you had to put him out there as a 3-down linebacker. He did pretty well last year in a limited role, and I expect that role to grow this year. Again, he's young, and I don't know what he looks like by the end of this season or the beginning of next season. And at some point, if he's asked to be a 3-down linebacker, I don't know where he stands in his development at that point either. But if the season started today, I wouldn't say he's as good as Alex Highsmith. I wouldn't say he's the next, superstar, undeniable, all pro in Pittsburgh. I think he's headed in that direction. I think he's got a good start to his career, a really, really good start to his career. And I think he could handle that role if need be, but I don't expect him to have to handle that role. And I think that's a really good thing in his development, is to continue to learn and play an easy role behind those guys.
Keeping with the outside linebacker trend, Broderick asks, "Who's outside linebacker 4 behind Herbig? Is that Jeremiah Moon as of right now?"
As of right now, I'd guess it's Jeremiah Moon. David Perales is probably like the second option behind there. Those would be my two competing for the job. I think they're going to see what they have in Moon. They're going to see how comfortable they feel in Moon, and then they're going to play it by ear. If they need to bring somebody else in, they will. But for right now, they're going to give those two shots. And I feel good about them. Like, you look back and, you always have the scars of Taco Charlton and Derek Tushka, but these guys, I think, are a step above both of them. And I think Prowse has some development in front of him, but I think he's got some quality play under his legs. I expect both of those guys, or at least one of those guys, to fill that role and be pretty good as a linebacker for.
Sir Schwartz asks, any chance that DeMarvin Leal takes a bigger leap this year, praying that the defensive line is better than anticipated?
I don't know. It's tough to say. It's really tough to say. Even Terrell Austin said yesterday that last year was real up and down for DeMarvin Leal, and it's a massive year for him. I don't know. I have a hard time sitting here and saying that DeMarvin Leal is going to take a jump forward, but I'm not gonna squash a player and say that it's all over for him until he proves to me that it's all over. It's too early to kind of look at those guys and judge those guys with everything else going on and no pads on. He looks leaner, which I think is a good thing. We'll see. We'll see in training camp. I hope so. I think there's always the possibility. DeMarvin Leal has a lot of potential. He just hasn't lived up to that potential, and he's kind of been a rocky player so far. But coming into the NFL, that dude had a ton of potential. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to say no, but I don't think I'm going to say yes either.
Skylar Strong has a quarterback question saying, if Russell Wilson has an average year this season, do you think the Steelers pivot off of him and try to build a future with Justin Fields? Or do you think they would try to ink Russ to a longer-term contract?
No, I think Russ has to become like all pro. This dude's winning a Super Bowl for the Steelers. There are no questions asked. He's their quarterback of the future to sign a long-term deal with the Steelers. Otherwise, it just makes way too much sense for Justin Fields to be that guy. And Justin Fields doesn't look bad enough. He looks like he's got some development in front of him. But I think you could give him a cheap deal and keep him around for his 26-year-old, 27-year-old seasons and see what you have in him. Russ is going to demand too much money. He's going to be too old. And again, if he is anything less than phenomenal, you're not thinking about him long-term because there are just too many options. That being said, average, I think, gets the job done this year, and I think that'll be just enough to not lose games. Hopefully you could win some too, but I think he's got to look ridiculous for them to keep him around.
We got a couple Corey Trice questions in the hopper. Let's start with Alex's saying, does Corey Trice still have the knee brace on, or is he a full participant so far this year?
Corey Trice took a little bit of team yesterday, which was good. I don't know if he still has the brace on. He might still have the brace on. I believe he still does. As of last week, he did. I didn't check yesterday. I was more focused on him actually on the field. I should have checked for the knee brace. That's my bad. He's getting there. He's taking strides. He'll be full contact, ready to go by training camp, which is great. Having him out there is good. He's got a long way to go when it comes to, recovering from a rookie season. I look at it as Calvin Austin last year, but I got a lot of potential in this kid, and I think he's got all the tangibles to do well. He's just got to adjust back to playing actual football.
Big Mabe follows that up saying, here's a question. If he can stay healthy, does Trice have a chance to compete for cornerback 2? If so, does Jackson play in the slot, or would you give the nod to Cam Sutton?
I don't think Corey Trice has a shot to be the cornerback 2. Dante Jackson's a starter. Like I think people are undervaluing how good Dante Jackson is and how reliable he is as a corner. Like, he's a starter on most teams in the NFL, unless you have two phenomenal corners already there. He's a guy that you brought in here. I don't think it's an even one-for-one trade. I think Deontay Johnson is a really good wide receiver, and what you gave up and were unable to replace him with is a little bit suspect. But I think Dante Jackson's a very reliable number 2 and should get some more respect. And I think, people not saying Big Mabe, not saying anybody out there is saying this, but I have heard it in the media a little bit of question marks about who the number 2 is. It's Dante Jackson. Like, it's no questions Dante Jackson. And Cam in the slot is your best option. Cam's a phenomenal slot corner. He's always played his best football at the slot. I got a lot of high hopes for that trio. And I think everybody else should too. I think they're going to be good once they get rolling.
You've had a long time to watch some of the undrafted free agents the Steelers have. Aaron wants to know, in your eyes, which, if any, undrafted free agents are making this team 1,000%?
1,000%. Whew. Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know if anybody's making it 1,000%. I don't even know if I've got 100% making it yet. Beanie Bishop's the guy that I think has the best opportunity to make the team this season. He looks like he's taking steps forward. He's got a name with Terrell Austin and those guys. I'll give you another one. John Rice Plumlee looks like a dude who he's not going to make the team, but he's going to make the practice squad. I'm almost certain that John Rice Plumlee is going to make the practice squad. and hopefully at some point he gets a shot in the NFL. But he looks just fun. He's having a blast out there, playing everywhere on the field, from punt returner to catching passes to playing quarterback to learning from Russ. He's a good dude. But Beanie Bishop is my make the roster undrafted free agent. I'm not 1,000% on him, but I feel he's got the best shot. He hasn't looked the greatest, like all the hype of he could be the starting slot guy, unrealistic. But he looks like a guy who's got development behind him, and hopefully the Steelers could turn that into something and maybe be a reliable backup at some point.
Burt Butler wants to know, how's Jaylen Warren looking, and is he getting extra time now since Najee Harris isn't doing anything this week?
I think once a day I watch individual running back drills and look at somebody next to me and go, damn, Jaylen looks good. I think once a day I make that comment. He looks ridiculous. He's explosive. He's just so natural. Every drill that they do, everybody else who's doing the drill, it looks somewhat smooth, but it looks so unsmooth compared to Jaylen Warren. Like it looks so rocky after Jaylen goes first and then everybody else goes next. I'm like, nobody did that as good as Jaylen. Nobody was as smooth as that. He looks ridiculous. Jaylen Warren is going to be a monster in the NFL. I have no worries about that. He has been getting some extra time with Najee gone, but so are the other guys, Aaron Chaplin, Dejon Edwards, Cordero Patterson starting to work his way in there a little bit from time to time. They're all kind of getting extra work. Yeah.
Joe asks a question. I know we touched on it Tuesday, but I'll give you a chance to reiterate here. He says, I like Miles Killebrew, but being there's a change on special plays, don't you think moving on from him would give the roster room for a higher needed position?
Not at all. I think you're looking at totally get it, but I think you're looking at the special teams changes in the wrong light. I think special teams is going to become a much more impactful play in the NFL this season, a significantly more impactful play. And you want those guys on the field and on your team who could kind of control the chaos as everybody learns it. Miles Killebrew is one of the most valuable guys on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, hands down. Nobody comes up to lead the NFL in punts is unreal. I don't think anybody could really put that into terms of how valuable it is to start a drive after blocking a punt. You are in phenomenal field position. It's as good as a turnover. Like it's as good as forcing a fumble or intercepting a pass and taking it to your side of the 50. That's what it is. It's one of the most valuable plays in football. He does it consistently. He's a leader. He's as physical as it gets, and he understands. He's as intelligent as they come as a football player. He understands it all. I would never give up Miles Killebrew. He is one of those guys that if you really sit down and watch him and just examine his play every week, he's invaluable. That's how good he is. You can't replace that guy. I would not get rid of him. And I expect him to make a significant impact on the change that the kickoff and kick return rules make, because it's going to be a much more significant play this year.
Jack the Goat is looking for an update on Pittsburgh Steelers first rounder Troy Fautanu. Says, how's he doing during mandatory minicamp?
Yeah, he's getting smoked by Nick Herbig all the time, but I think that's more Nick Herbig than Troy Fautanu. Troy's looking good. He's slowly coming along. It's tough right now to kind of make those analysis or dive into that. I think we'll know more in training camp. Right now, I don't think I'm locking him in as a starter, but again, a long time to go, and we got pads to come on, and that's when we'll really understand these things. But for right now, an adjustment period. He's going through the adjustment period. It doesn't look bad. He's just adjusting to the game.
Alex wants to know, why did we let go of Hakeem Butler from the XFL? Was it really that hard for him to adjust to the NFL? I'm assuming you saw him last year during the summer. Was he struggling at all?
Yeah, he had his moments early, but they faded very, very fast. He dropped a lot of balls last summer. He was just not he's not what you hoped he could be. He's not what he hoped he could be. It wasn't like a debate of, should Hakeem Butler make the team? Should he not? By the end of the summer, it was pretty clear he's not making the team. It's not happening. And then he didn't make the team. That's why they let him go. They actually let him go with an injury settlement, but I don't think he would have made the team either way. He looks good in the UFL. He looked great in the XFL. Dude's phenomenal UFL player, and I hope he makes it work in Carolina. I do, but I don't know. Some guys are just better for the UFL and the XFL than they are the NFL, I guess. It's got to be the same with every league, and he just seems like that guy. And he could go down as like the greatest UFL player ever at this point, because he's been smoking these guys. And if you consider his XFL season, he was doing the same thing there. So as of right now, he's definitely up there, but I don't know, just couldn't make it work. He definitely struggled last summer. He didn't look like a strong candidate to make the team.
Big Mabe says, speaking of running backs, how does old man Patterson look? Any chance he affects the wide receiver room this season?
Yeah, he looks. I haven't been able to see much. He's just showed up to the last day of OTAs. He's doing some stuff in mandatory minicamp. I don't know what's going on with him, but he's not doing a ton. I'm sure it's a veteran just easing his way into things. That's where we're at. I do expect him to impact the wide receiver room. I'll give you one thing on him. He's massive. That man is a giant human being. Like, you look at him, and I've said it every day. Wow, that guy's big. He's a big dude. He's like twice the size of Jaylen Warren. It's wild. And not like fat, like just a massive human, like just a big guy. I expect him to definitely make some noise in the wide receiver room, definitely make an impact in the running back room. I don't know, yet to be seen, but I'm not going to say he's been poor by any means.
A lot of talk about Minka Ball this week. Raphael wants to know, will Minka actually have a comeback season after last year?
Yeah, I mean, last year was the injury. I think people are a little tougher on Minka than they should be. And I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, the general consensus is like Minka's fallen off. I don't think that's the case. I think that he hasn't had the weapons around him to be able to trust those guys the way that he'd like to. I mean, last year, his starting safety next to him was Keanu Neal, man. Where's Keanu Neal today? Nobody knows exactly. I think that he has a very good group around him right now. He'll be able to play more Minka ball, which is way back in the free safety realm, and be able to see the field, which is going to force turnovers, is going to allow him to play faster. I expect a big year from Minka. If he could stay healthy and do what he does best, and everybody else around him works well, which it looks like they're gonna, I expect a massive season from him.
Aaron Ball wants to know, it's a bit early, but who's your pick as of right now to be the team's offensive MVP?
Offensive MVP. I mean, George has got to be the easy one. I think he's in for a monster year. Jaylen would probably be my number 2 as a sleeper. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year in that offense. I think he's just going to look so good. Russ could be up there, but if I had to pick 2, I'm going George Pickens and Jaylen Warren. Those two just feel like guys who could have explosive seasons, make Pro Bowls, and kind of make some serious noise in 2023.
Bert says, speaking of special teams, do we have a reliable punter or kicker? I know you were talking to Danny Smith earlier this week.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron Johnson is as good as they get in the NFL. He's phenomenal. He's also hilarious. Like, and I love Presley Harvin as a person. I thought he was a great dude. I still think he's a great dude. But Cameron Johnson's also funny. I love his Australian accent. I actually joke about it all the time. But he was like, every day he's kicking punts, and they're like landing 4 feet from me for some reason. And he's like, just trying to hit you another day. I'm like, thanks, pal. Appreciate it. But he looks really, 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 really good. Like, game changer good compared to years past. And then Chris Boswell, man. Like, you're not going to bash on the Wizard until you have to bash on the Wizard, and he's shown nothing. So I got no worries about Chris Boswell, one of the best in the NFL, has been.
Kevin wants to know, why does everyone like Warren over Najee? Don't you think that we have something going with a 1-2 punch rather than just one running back this year?
Oh, you should always have a 1-2 punch. It should never be one over the other, ever. It should always be Najee gets the start, Jaylen comes in there as the explosive guy, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. They should split reps pretty evenly. It should always be a 1-2 punch. That's always how it should be. And that's how this offense will run, is there are 2 starting running backs, and they're both very, very good. That's anybody who's trying to be like, oh, Jaylen should be the guy, it should not be Najee. You're just trying to, they're just trying to cause stuff. They're just trying to stir the pot a little bit. It should be both of them, and it's going to be both of them.
We got a couple interesting questions to close out on. Let's start with EJ, who said, my guy, huge fan, off-topic question. How's your guys' week going so far? And Noah, is that beard graying from the stress from this team, or I'll add to this, or is it the fact that you got a wedding coming up in 48 hours?
Dude, I think it's both, man. I think it's both. Every day I look in the mirror and I'm like, come on, guys, hold it together. You got 3 more days. Stop. Just stop. I got them in my hair now. It's bad. It's bad. I told myself a couple years ago when I started this show, I said, all right, this is it. This is how I'm going to look for the rest of my life, because, I'm not going to be the guy that changes it up. And everybody's like, who's that guy? No, it's Noah Strackbine. I want it to be known. The gray hairs might throw. I hope I don't throw everybody off. A little salt and pepper. I'll say this. My fiance, soon to be wife, is a couple years, 2 years younger than me, and she jokes every single day She's like, oh, my old man. And I'm like, stop. We're going to stop saying that right now. But
Hey,
they're holding in there.
I was about to say that's a marriage thing. My wife always says, "Oh, look at that gray hair. Look at that gray hair." So,
It doesn't help. My
it
barber
doesn't
says
help.
the same thing. Same
Yeah.
thing every time I go. She's like, you got another one. I'm like, I don't care. Cut it off. Get it away from me.
It's like I kind of expected it to go that direction than the opposite. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then people start tossing in the you should dye it. You could just dye your hair. No. Dude, no. No. One day maybe. No, not even close. Not even close. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Hopefully we come back Monday. We still got a couple of brown ones in there.
Let's finish it off with Turk Hollinger, who said, "Can we get a few AST watch parties during Steelers games this year? That way we'd have a place to come talk Steelers mid-game."
I would love to. This has been a thought of mine for a long time. The problem is that I'm actually at the games. So I'm in the press box. It's tough to kind of do that. So I'm pumping out, 10 plus articles a day on everything that's happening out there. I'm there morning to dusk. I would love to. I would really, really love to. It's just tough. Maybe a couple of away games that I don't make it to this year because I don't always fly to away games. It depends on where they are. And, I'm not going over to, like, in years past, it was like, you're going to go to the Chargers game. It's like, no, I'm not actually. There'll be a couple this year that we do the same thing. Would love to. I will keep you guys updated if it ever happens. And I appreciate wanting to have them. Hopefully one day, but for right now, we'll see what happens. I want to answer Big Mabes here too. I am 28. I'll be 29 in January. So way too young to be out here graying. But again, you watch Pittsburgh Steelers football every day. It gets rough, man. It gets it gets rough. It gets rough. Me and Cam joke quite a bit about who's getting grayer faster. So it's and he's almost got 10 years on me. So it's coming fast. It's coming fast. It's coming fast. Is that it? Is that what we got?
Yeah, we'll call it a day on that one.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we're going to head out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, please go find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.